Amen. So friends, one of my favorite pastors, theologians, is a guy by the name of Louis Giglio. Anybody heard of Louis Giglio? Yeah? Yeah? Okay, good. Louis Giglio, he wrote this sermon once called How Great Is Our God? And I'm kind of ripping him off today because it's just so good. But I got affirmation. Do you ever get affirmation that, what you're doing is right and God puts, people in your path? And so I was talking about Louis Giglio once, and I happened to be walking in the streets of Jerusalem. Okay? Jerusalem's in Israel, a little ways away. And who do you think God had the stars align and cross my path at the same time? Louis Giglio. I mean, come on. It was like two stars coming and aligning at the same time. And so he's kind of one of my heroes. And for me to meet him on the streets, because I never really met him before. I've heard a lot of his stuff. But to meet him on the streets in Jerusalem, I'm like, okay, God, you're funny. I love how you do. So Louis talks about the goodness and the greatness of God and how big God is and how amazing God is. And he talks about how we just can't fathom. We get tied up in the mess of the world. And Louis is just like, friends, you have focused on the wrong thing. And I want you to see just how big and how great, how expansive God is. And sometimes we need to change our perspectives, right? We need to have a perspective change a little bit. So there's a picture here that's going to come up on the screen. And so has anybody heard of the Whirlpool Galaxy? Friends, you guys need to know your astrology or your astronomy more. Not astrology. So in the night sky, you can see the circle over here. That's it in the distance. And luckily, anybody heard of the James Webb Telescope? Praise Jesus, you guys are alive. The James Webb Telescope, friends, has been sending us back these images. Oh, I just get goosebumps and I'm chilled just to see the creation. I mean, friends, so, we get this little dot, this little perspective, but God's got this last half. He's like, if you just zoom in a little more, how great is our God, right? And that's just one little cluster in the night sky. There are billions upon billions upon billions. When you look out to the stars, there's lots of black space. And so they did an experiment once. They were like, well, there was this little black dot about the size of a tennis ball that they haven't really explored very much with. And so what did they do? They focused the camera on the size of a tennis ball in the night sky, and they focused it there for 10 days. And what did they find? A bunch of stuff. It wasn't just a few hundred galaxies that were in there. It was billions of galaxies in this little shape the size of a tennis ball. And on those billions of galaxies, friends, are billions of stars. That's just one little area. The God that we are worshiping today, I need you to leave this place and know that the God that you are worshiping today, that we gather in this room for, has created this for you. For you to enjoy. We're just now getting to discover these things. And it's amazing how so many people in our life, their faith is still so strong, but they have no clue about what's going on. I was reminded that once when I was in Mozambique, and I'm standing in a Methodist mission station, and the night sky, holy smokes, friends, you have to go to Mozambique with me just to see the night sky. Like, it just changes your life. But the night sky, I was sitting there and I was looking at it because it was so dark and it was as bright as I've ever seen it before. And then all of a sudden, something amazing happened. I was sitting with some of my friends from Mozambique, and all of a sudden, I knew that the International Space Station had come across the sky. And I got so excited because you don't always see it. And I said, guys, guess what that is right there? And they're like, what's there? And I said, that's the International Space Station. There are people, there are humans right there. And they were like, what? They had no clue. They had no clue that there were human beings off the earth living on this tin can in space. Could you imagine their perspective change from that time? The universe that God created is so vast, friends, that we're using a ruler called a light year, okay? And a light year is 5.888 trillion miles long. You have to travel 108,000 miles per second for 32 million years before you reach the Whirlpool Galaxy. Wow. Are you following me, friends? I mean, how great is our God, right? In this one galaxy, it contains 1 billion stars, and it's only one of hundreds of billions of galaxies in the known universe that God, whenever we read the story, did you hear how God unfolded that story? And there was a chaos and mess, and yet he brought it all together. Are you hearing that story that God's creating for you all, friends? You know, the Hubble telescope has taken some amazing images. But the James Webb telescope is showing us that God is bigger than our wildest imagination. The James Webb telescope captured an image of a black hole. And it's been one of the most elusive images that we've been able to find. Because, you know, when a black hole happens, there's chaos that happens. There's this thing that's called the event horizon. You know, it's like a Kirby vacuum or a Dyson. It's just sucking everything in. You know, and it doesn't ever stop. And it's like garbage. It's just eating and eating and eating, and energy and time and space and light, and it's just all wrapped around, and it's just chaotic, and it's coming all down to this one singular spot that's called the singularity. And everything is just keep cramming denser and denser and denser and denser into that one spot. And God created that. And that's just one of them, one of his creations. Everywhere we look is God's goodness. Everywhere we look, it's God's creation. You know, if we really imagine the bigness of God, we have to look at 4 stars. We're going to start with our own solar system. I think most of us have seen our sun, right? You get out and you're not supposed to look at it directly with your eyes, or you might burn your face off. Especially on solar eclipse days, you got to get those goggles and protect yourself, because it's big, it's amazing, it's powerful, and we're this blue speck. I didn't put a picture, and I wish I would have, but I think it was in 1974 or 79, we sent this tin can out in space called the Voyager. Anybody remember that? And it's now outside of our solar system, and it's just keep going out to wherever it goes. But it sent a picture back a few years ago of a blue speck. Us. Anybody seen that picture? Yeah. We're just this blue speck that happens to be perfectly positioned. As I was looking at the sermon again, I was just thinking about it. It's like, you know, we are so comfortable. We're spoiled rotten, if we just are honest, you know, because, you know, we have to have the right temperature. If it gets too hot, we complain. If it gets too cold, we complain, And here God has perfectly balanced. And, we live in Missouri, and so sometimes, it might be 40 degrees in the morning, and then we warm up to maybe 80 degrees, and then it cools back down. I mean, can you imagine if it was like, negative, 300 to 700 degrees, these vast things? We wouldn't survive. I mean, we are so fragile. And God has created this one star where the surface of the temperature of it is 10,000 degrees Fahrenheit. It's 93 million miles away. And the sun is 1,000,000 times, 1,000,000 of these. 1,000,000 of these is the size of our one sun. I want you to listen to the psalmist. By the word of the Lord, the heavens are made, their starry host by the breath of his mouth. Friend, God breathes out the stars. And in the same breath that he's breathing out those stars, he's breathing out new creation in you. Right? He's breathing out these enormous stars. And I have to put this in perspective because for me, the sun is really, really big. Again, if the earth was a golf ball, the sun would be 15 foot in diameter, okay? So Pam, you're about 15 foot. I'm going to throw this to you. You got to catch it, okay? So you ready? Oh, I missed. There you go. So for me, so 15 foot is here. You can throw it back. You got it. One bounce. There we go. Yeah. So that's in perspective, our little earth, and then the sun is this much bigger. That's pretty big, right? It's enough golf balls that it would fill an entire school bus full of golf balls. That's the comparison of where it is. The sun is one of hundreds of billions of stars in the Milky Way. Now, the next star that God created is so big, I can't even imagine how big it is. It's called Betelgeuse. It's 427 light years away from us. It's 5.88 trillion miles away. The star Betelgeuse is twice the size, listen to this, twice the size of the Earth's orbits around the sun, okay? So we just did our little 15-foot experiment here. And so think about the Earth traveling around the sun and multiply that times 2, and that's how big that one star is. Just that one teeny tiny little star, Betelgeuse, sitting up in the night sky. If the Earth were a golf ball, you know where I'm going, right? Betelgeuse would be the size of 6 Empire State Buildings stacked on top of each other. That's the change or the difference in the diameter of the Earth, and then 6 Empire State Buildings is how big Betelgeuse would be comparative. You could fill 252 trillion Earths inside of Betelgeuse. If the Earth were a golf ball, it's enough golf balls to fill this beautiful stadium. Not one time, 3,000 times. 3,000 times, friends. God is saying, I created something that this little ball 3,000 times fills this stadium up. How big is our God, friends? Huge. Should we stop there? No, we're not stopping there. There's another star called Musifi. Musifi, friends, is a garnet star. It's sometimes known as Herschel's garnet star. Musifi, in this beautiful creation, is the brightest thing that you see on the screen up here. Okay? Now again, you see billions of stars here, but there's one bright one right there in the middle. If the earth was a golf ball, Musifi would be the width of 2 Golden Gate bridges end to end. Could you imagine setting a golf ball at the end of a Golden Gate bridge, and there's 2 of them. Somebody Google for me real quick how long the Golden Gate Bridge is and just scream it out. I think it's like 2 or 3 miles, but I don't know. But there's 2 of them, and that's how big Musifi is. It could fit 2.7 quadrillion Earths inside of this one star. Okay, so it's a little over 1.5 miles. Yeah. 1.7 miles. That's a little bit over 1.5 miles. Yeah. Yeah, it's good. Thank you all. Appreciate y'all. So how big is a quadrillion? Okay. 1,000,000 seconds. I want you to think about 1,000,000 because I can think of about 1,000,000. 1,000,000 seconds. How long would 1,000,000 seconds be? How long ago? Just 1,000,000 seconds. 12 days. Yeah. 12 days ago was 1,000,000 seconds. 1,000,000 seconds passed 12 days ago. How long was 1,000,000,000 seconds ago? $1980 was 1,000,000,000 seconds ago. How long was 1,000,000,000,000 seconds ago? Maybe Christopher Columbus sailed the ocean blue. 15 what? 1592? No? 14 what? 1492. 1,000,000,000,000 seconds ago, friends, is 31,000 years ago. Now we're going to come to a quadrillion. How many seconds is a quadrillion seconds ago? Any guesses? Yeah. 31 million years ago was a quadrillion seconds. Friends, are you understanding a little bit about how significant you are? This is not to make you feel insignificant. This is to make you feel like the most significant thing ever that God has created. This one star in the galaxy God created for you to experience. And we're almost done, but there's one more. This is the largest star that has ever found thus far. It's called Canis Majoris. If the Earth was a golf ball, Canis Majoris would be the height of Mount Everest. Help me with Mount Everest again. Tell me how tall it is. I think it's like 5 miles tall, 6 miles above sea level, the highest point on the planet. And so I want you to look at, first off, we see that the sun here, there's the sun, the blue dot was Earth's orbits, it just gets so big, and here we are here, and then you got Jupiter's orbits, and you got Saturn's orbits, you got Uranus's orbits, and so basically our entire solar system is about the size of Canis Majoris. That's enough that if the Earth was a golf ball, it would fill our second largest state in the United States. I was wrong when I told the kids earlier. 22 inches deep with golf balls. We are living on a privileged planet, friends. We are living in something extremely special that God is creating for us. You couldn't even put a tiny dot on the screen for it to really estimate the size of our sun. And I don't know about you and what this does for you, but it doesn't create a shrinking feeling for us. It creates an expansive feeling that, my gosh, God created me for a time like this, in a season like this, to bring life change to people. Sin has a way of shrinking God down in our minds and puffing us up in our own estimation. But just glance, friends, just glance into the universe and it resizes everything, your entire perspective. We get a new perspective of God and his creation and how sin is so minuscule. And then we realize that we worship this God that is incomprehensible bigger than what we could ever imagine. And we're not here worshiping this teeny tiny God. We are worshiping the God of the universe that breathed out these stars. Right? We're just one of like 8 billion or 7 billion people that get to scratch out, if we're lucky, 75 years, I think is the average male. Most of us aren't lucky. One of our good friends, he was only 62. God has something really special for each and every one of you. And I hope that you are taking that moment. And in the midst of all the things that kind of get the hair on the back of our neck, riled up, and we get kind of frustrated about this or that, friends, just pause. Maybe I need to get golf balls for everybody. What do you think? I did that in Adrian, and they have a sloped sanctuary. And so I had all the kids come up, and I gave them all a golf ball. And throughout the entire service, I'd have this big moment. Yeah, it was fun. Friends, I want you to hear this, that though we are man, we are a vapor. We are tiny and frail. We are marked by the majesty that has been created in the very image of God, who breathes out the stars, who puts out the universes in their place. Now we're going to go the other direction here, friends, because God made you from one single cell from your mom and one single cell from your dad. Each of you are carrying 23 chromosomes with you. One from your mom carrying half of her DNA, one from your dad carrying the other half of his DNA. And these two cells meet and they merge. And I don't know if anybody knows this, but whenever the sperm fertilizes the egg, do you know that there's something that's really like explosive that happens in that moment? I want you to Google it. I didn't have the picture on the screen, and I wish I would have now, but you're just going to Google it and go home. The second that the sperm fertilizes the egg, that exact moment, there's a burst of light around the egg. Google it. They actually have pictures of it now. There's a burst of light that happens, that God breathed into that time. If a person were to read your DNA 1 character per second, night and day, it would take that person 96 years to read the description of you. Friends, in the faces that I look out into the sanctuary this morning, God painted a picture that's never been created before. Do you feel that? Do you feel special? Friends, I know that we have hard times every once in a while. I know that depression is a real thing. I know that not everything is, peaches and cream and rosy and all that. I know that. But I want you to know this morning, nobody can leave this place, nobody can leave this house of worship without you knowing that God created a masterpiece in every single one of you. Amen? If you took that picture, I think there's a picture of an embryo that we're going to put up. We're just this tiny little speck. And then all of a sudden, something happens. I just don't get it. I don't understand. They start to divide and divide and divide and divide. And before you know it, boom, you got a tail. And Then the tail goes away, and then they just keep dividing, and you've got a nose, and you got an ear, and you got an eye, and you got little fingers. Like the little fingers are just the best when they start to develop, right? And all together, you're connected to this life-giving system, the mother, right? And that's why I think about God, I think really the description of God, this mother figure really comes to mind the most, because when you think about a baby, it has to be connected to the mother, and it's like a parasite, really, just sucking life out of her. But it's giving life, right? Augustus said this: men go aboard to wander at the height of mountains, the huge waves of the sea, the long courses of rivers, the vast compasses of the ocean, the circular motion of the stars. But we pass by each other and we don't even notice them. Ugh. It just breaks my heart. I know that we're all kind of like our own symphony of stars that are going about our own business, moving in directions. And every once in a while, we come in alignment with one another, right? And we just for a moment, we have this time where we get together. And then what happens is we go back out and we get distant, and we come away, and we're not in relationship with each other again. And so there's a reason for that. But friends, when we are close, when our stars are aligning, whenever we're on this same path together, this same journey together, let's do the best that we can to make sure that this journey is a good one, right? The God of the heavens is the one who fashioned you together. He knows every single thing about you. And God promises you that those who trust in God, God will hold them and carry them all the days of their life. And God is making that promise to you today. He is a universe maker. He promises you that no matter how difficult the world might become, that He cares about you. He loves you. He has fashioned you. He has knitted you together. There's something amazing about our bodies and how they're created, right? Because there are some creatures that are just a big pile of ooze, like a slug, right? Thank God we're not slugs. I do have to say that God has a sense of humor. And I know that God has a sense of humor because I look at the creation that God has created. And He had to just be up there saying, I'm going to do this. I'm going to create a fish, and I'm going to put a light bulb on its head so that fish could dangle the light bulb out in the middle of the darkness of the seas, and then it would draw other fish, and it could and grab the other. See, that's the sense of humor. But we are made uniquely. I'm going to talk about a cell adhesion molecule, we're going to get really deep here, called laminin. Anybody heard of laminin before? Nice. You must have heard this sermon before. If you didn't have laminin in your body, you would be a slug. Yeah. A cell adhesion molecule is what pulls us together, binds us together, makes our body have shape and everything. And so it holds the lining of our organs together, and it holds our limbs together. Our skin is perfectly shaped. And do you know what laminin looks like? Anybody know what laminin looks like besides the peanut gallery over here? It's amazing. It's amazing. Let's show them laminin. Friends, this cell adhesion molecule is in the perfect shape of a cross. And you can't have life without this one protein called laminin. This picture here in the center is an actual picture of laminin. You wouldn't exist if you didn't have laminin in your body. Friends, that's crazy to me. That's proof to me that God blends everything together, science and creation. This is the place you are setting this morning where a star breather looked at you and said, you're special. I'm going to bind you together to do great things. The universe maker became mankind's savior, and it is proven that God doesn't always change circumstances, but God walks through us with life. God always has a purpose and a plan that will triumph whatever is happening in our world. I mean, friends, we're not even here for an eye blink or snap of the finger in God's time. Now, I want to take the 70 plus years that hopefully God gives me, and I want to do something amazing with it, right? But the reality of life is this, is that we are just a mere infinitesimal moment in God's timing. But I do need to know this. I need to know that God cares and that God can do something great in and through me. I need to know that whenever I have pain, that God will be there with me. Have you not heard that the Lord will never grow tired or weary? I mean, friends, He's creating all the time. And I think that sometimes when we read the Genesis story, we think that creation stops, right? God is continuing to create. God says, I will renew your strength. And when you think that you can't take any more breath, God says, I'm going to give you one more breath. One more breath. And God will hold you together. Friends, there are millions upon millions upon millions of crosses that are holding you together this morning. Amen? Would you pray with me?